Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Smith. Paraskevia is my channel, and today we're looking at two more tandebuli endings in the dative case. Shoris, which means between, and shua, which also means between, but we're going to see it in another way because actually it's more useful in a different case. So, if you're ready, let's go. Let's start with my Instagram posters. On the left, Shoris, and on the right, shua. Shoris and shua both mean between, but shua is much older and you won't really need it. Shua functions in a different way when it's in the middle of something and it's in a different case. So let's just go to the one that we really need. Shoris. Sadaris Sakatvelo. Where is Georgia? And we can say that Georgia is between Europe and Asia, geographically. So, Sadaris Sakatvelo. Evropa sada Asias Shorisa. It is between Europe and Asia. If I wanted to substitute shua for shoris, I could, but I'm not going to. The point being that shua sounds a bit like betwixt in English. And if you are using British English, then you'll know that this word exists, but in such a limited, old school way that it's really not worth entirely mentioning. You don't learn it at school, for example. So here we've got shua meaning shoris, but in these limited contexts. And you'll see them in texts and things like that. But let's just say that how frequently are you going to use betwixt? Almost never. Although I can't say never ever. So that's the point, and in that case, they're both dative endings, meaning that Evropa here takes the S, and Asia here takes the S to indicate that it's in the dative case. Now, let's move over to shua. Shua now is used in a completely different way in modern Georgian, and it's actually used inside the preposition shuashi much more. And shuashi means in the middle of something. If we're going to be using shuashi together, then it's no longer, in fact, a dative ending. Indeed, she is also a dative ending. And it seems to me that when you put them together, they function, in fact, as a preposition, and then you need it in the genitive case. So, rar shuashi. What is in the middle? We can see an egg, no? Kvertschi. Chachapuris. Shuashi. Kvertschia. What that really means is that the chachapuris middle, in the middle is an egg. So what we have to realize is that shua as a synonym of shoris is in the dative case. But shua as a preposition that means in the middle is in the genitive case. And we're going to actually see that because shua is used in combination and we can separate this, then the following noun, which takes she, goes back to being dative again. So this is the one that's going to present us with the biggest problems. But most of all, we just have to remember that this one means between and this one means in the middle. To illustrate my point a little bit better, I thought we would look at a hamburger, because what is between isn't necessarily always in the middle. So with a burger, it's pretty clear, no? We got two pieces of bread, and in the middle, in between, is the burger. It's quite neat and quite small. But when we looked at the example, for example, of Georgia, which was between Asia and Europe, well, that's not really in the middle. We couldn't say shuashi. And that, I think, illustrates the existence of both. They do really say such similar things, but on a technical basis, there is a distinction. So here with the burger, puris orina cheri, part A and part B, damat shoris, between them, shuashi, ratskindat. Whatever you want. Shuashi here. So it supposes that shoris is codependent on an A, B, C relationship whereas shuashi is not. Slide 1, and it's our third tandebuli postposition ending in mitsemiti brunva. So it's a dative postposition Shoris. The important thing, of course, when we use our pronouns, don't add an S. That's a mistake for these mitsemiti brunva. And chem Shoris is between me. Chven Shoris is between us. Shen Shoris, tkwen Shoris, tkwen Shoris, mas Shoris, mat Shoris. No S in any of these examples. What's important here to remember quite obviously is if we do remember, it echoes that dynamic of a three-part. Chem Shoris is clearly lacking something. Between me, ... right? It's lacking. Whereas Chven Shoris between us clearly has part A, part B, you and I, and then whatever it's about. And tkwen Shoris as a plural, not in the formal way. And then mat Shoris, like I did with the burger, the top of the burger, the bottom of the burger, and so on. So these on, in this column, suppose the ABC Trinity relationship, whereas this one doesn't yet. That doesn't mean that it can't happen. Now, what's very interesting is that when you speak with you and I, then it's not entirely necessary to use Chven. If you are going to say between you and me, shen da chem Shoris, shen da chem Shoris. If you're going to flip it, me da shen Shoris, me da shen Shoris. Here we've got no S added at all in any of these examples. But here on the right, we've got what is in fact a mistake. So if we look at this, which is a YouTube, I mentioned this last week, with aras tsoria, these are correct. Me da shen Shoris, between you and I. Shen da chem Shoris, between you and me. The use of the pronoun and the personal pronoun here, of course, is important to remember. And then the last example, we've got me da mas Shoris, between him and I, between her and I, between it and I. But mas, that chem Shoris, is awkward. I suppose it really looks like driving a car with square wheels. It's not right, and it's a frequent mistake. Below, I thought we would remember the dynamic between A, B, and C. So, Itzira aris, meda shen Shoris, ganz chvaveba. Ganz chvaveba is the difference. Itzira aris, meda shen Shoris, ganz chvaveba. Do you know the difference between you and I? So this is quite an important word, and it does come up supplementary in children's education. The difference between humans and apes. So we find that this ganz chvaveba being quite a useful word to use, of course, with active use. And then we've got here then just what I discovered is mat Shoris indeed, because it's often used to illustrate among others, among a wider group. When you've got large tables of information, then it has an abbreviation M sh, m sh. So if you see m sh, it actually means among, and it's an abbreviation of mat Shoris. Among, amongst, in between. Yeah, you can see how this is why it's tricky. From an English language perspective, we have quite a lot of synonyms. And I think that it's the synonymous relationship that causes us the biggest problem, rather than the rules that I've just presented. The next slide, 4 examples using Shoris, remembering that parts A and part B are in dative case, so they need an S. And then, of course, part C, which is what's in the middle, right? So our first question was, where is Georgia? Sadaris, Sakatvello, and Sakatvello, Europa sada Asias Shorisa a. Georgia is, and that is here, right at the very end. The double A is used because Shoris ends in an S, not a vowel. And so to make sure that the person hears I'm using aris, but knows I'm using the short form of aris, it becomes shorisa'a. Shorisa. You can hear it. Rather than shoris aris. Right? That's what's going on. So we do learn at the beginning that the a substitute the whole word aris. But now we're going to learn in a complete question, it's not enough. It's double a. So aris is shrunk to a. Sakatvello Evropa sada Asia shorisa. Here we've got the a softening the transition between the da, which is and, sada. In fact, it almost sounds like they're saying sada. Evropa sada Asia shorisa. This is a question that I thought I would clarify because Pablo sent me a message on my videos and asked that question concretely with shesacheb. He said my videos are so valuable and this content is just perfect. So thank you so much for your very, very positive feedback. However, I struggle to understand the ending double A with chem shesacheba. And of course, why is it not one? I've just explained it, but I'm just going to explain it again. So double A means in a question, is it? Isn't it? It's used in the question to engage the listener. And it means in the answer, it is. Georgia is. The nose is. It isn't as well. Aris. Yeah? So 1A is for aris. The other works as savrot sobe a, which we've looked at before. It is usually used when the word doesn't end in a vowel, meaning chem, shesacheb, aris. It is about me. So the A is, the second A doubles down literally on the word aris without saying aris. And that's the point. It is about me. Chem shesacheba. That is only really necessary if somebody asks you, who is it about? Is it about you? It isn't about you, says the person. And you think, no, chem shesacheba. It is about me. So it adds that extra emphasis and therein lies the function. The next thing, of course, would be the example, schvidi, no? Schvidi, tvalebs, schvidi, tvaleb, shorisa. 2 eyes, 1 nose. Your nose, the nose, is between the eyes. The need in English to use shens is just here with strike through. I don't need it. It's kind of self-evident to Georgians that schvidi, sadaris, schvidi, tvaleb, shorisa. Your eye is between, no, your nose is between your eyes, concretely. No negotiation there. The next one is when shoris migrates into amongst. Here we do have a plural. Potlebi is now potlebs. No, we've got them in our dative case. Sadar is kata. Kata. Potlebs. Shorisa. Kata. Potlebs. Shorisa. Now that's quite interesting. Potlebi. This is not just 2, is it? This is now a large amount of leaves. Perhaps we can't count them or the quantity of leaves is unimportant. So kata, potlebs, shorisa. Sadar is kata. No? Where is the cat? And the cat is amongst the leaves. So here we start to see how between also migrates into amongst. If the plural is a uncountable plural, whether you need to count them, whether you can't count them, whether it's not important to be counted. It's just the cat is between many, many leaves, not on them. And perhaps, that's another preposition that we've already studied. The next one would be prenebi. These are flights. Sakatvelu rusets shorisa. Sakatvelu rusets shorisa. Flights between Georgia and Russia. And this has actually occupied the news quite a lot, this particular storyline, because here we can see the use of one S because Ruseti Sakatvelo has been compressed, Ruset Sakatvelo, Shoris, and then here that extra A, Sakatvelo Sa, Da, Ruset Shoris, Sakatvelo Sa, Da, Ruset Shoris, here that A because both of them are separated with Da, so we need that A again. Let's look at shua and its meaning rather than inside a system of nouns. Titi, finger. Shua titi, surprise, surprise, middle finger. Katsi is a man. Shuakatsi is a man, a middleman in between negotiations, perhaps an in-betweener. In this case, rame, the next one, night. Shuarame, midnight. Dre, midday. Shuadre is noon. Shuaze and shuazega chopa is when something is split in the middle, in half, divided. Shuasaukunebi are the middle centuries, and so that is actually the Middle Ages by definition. Sashualo is used then to describe the average, with shua in the middle of the word here. And then shua inglisuri, which would be Geoffrey Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales, which is the English version of Shota Rustaveli. Now that we understand as shua more as a passive complement, then we can use it in this very famous example where we're looking at shua in the middle, Kalakshi in the middle of the city, which is the name of this TV show. And what we've done is, if we look very carefully now, is that shua remains on the side, and then kalaki, which is the nominative noun in the dictionary, becomes kalaks, because she is a dative, tandebuli. So kalaks then loses the S, kalakshi. Shua kalakshi, in the middle of the city. If we look at kucha, again another noun, kuchas in dative, shua kuchashi, in the middle of the street. Here I just thought it would be a little bit more complicated, but centershi is in the middle of the center. Shua centershi is exactly the middle of the center. Maybe you're talking about the city center as well, you know? So we're looking at it more from an absolute center. This is in the nominative. It's lost the S. We've added shua to say the middle, but we've added she to say inside. The last slide, of course, goes back to the very beginning of this presentation, and it's good news because really, when we use shuashi as a preposition, forgetting the fact that they are independent tandebuli endings, that it simply means the middle, and we can add it, then we take a noun, a street, kucha, the streets, kuchis, shuashi. Kuchis, shuashi, the middle of the street, the middle point. The street's middle, I suppose. Kalaki, city. Kalakis, shuashi, the center of the city, the center point of the city, the city's center. And then Sakatvelos, shuashi. Sakatvelos, shuashi is the center of Georgia. So we can see here, shuashi, working as a preposition, is in the genitive case rather than the dative case, and it makes the whole description of position a lot easier, leading to the assumption that this is nowadays much more frequent than the archaic shua as a tandebuli in the dative case, and you can probably see why. That's the last slide of today, and thank you very much. Next week, the last two tandebulis in the dative case, tan and vit, where vit, very much like shua, has another operation in a different case. We'll see that next time. Have a nice weekend. Bye.